Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Last Shot NBA show here on Little Birdie TV, brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au. And as usual, it is Friday morning, so we are joined by old mate Benyam Kidane from NBA Australia. BK, good morning.
How we doing, my man?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. A lot to talk about in the NBA world. Let's go around the NBA, though. We'll just take a couple of quick look at the games from yesterday. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 47 points in a nice win over the Lakers. The Bucks move up to 7-8. BK, is this the game that turns the season? Now Middleton's back as well. Is this a game that turns the season for the Bucks?
It was a little bit of a statement game when Giannis starts playing like Shaquille O'Neal and just taking it straight to the rim. It's that's got to be a nice confidence boost. He looked a lot like the Giannis we saw in the finals last season. So, like you said, Middleton's back now. Giannis is rolling. This could be the one that kind of turned things around for the Bucks because they have gotten out to a pretty slow start so far.
Yeah, and as we've talked about, they've had a lot of injuries, so it's perfectly understandable. On the flip side of the coin, the Lakers don't look like they're turning it around anytime soon. Now, an Australian that we've spoken a lot about, Josh Giddey, another impressive performance yesterday. Had another sort of one of those near triple-double games, ended up with a double-double. He feels like he's knocking on the door of a triple-double pretty soon, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's gotten close quite a few times, but I think for Josh Giddey, he's had a pretty tough, I guess, couple of weeks shooting the ball. The jumper hasn't really been there. He hasn't really been connecting on those shots from the three-point line. But what was impressive in this game was that he was just taking it straight to the rim. He had like 3 or 4 reverse layups, some nice sort of finishes at the rim. So when you're not shooting the ball well and you can get shots to go down at the rim, I think that's a nice sort of confidence boost for him for sure.
And there was a nice little sequence that I saw. I mean, it was nice for Josh Giddey where he grabbed the ball, he had it at around the three-point line, and he just strolled to the bucket. Like, the defense was like literally nowhere to be found. It looked like it was you and me playing defense on a Monday night rec league game.
No, well, that's the thing. He is 6'8". He does have those long strides. Like, he can get into the paint. And he's got that sort of herky jerky movement that, he's a tricky kind of guy for defenders to try and sort of slow down. So I like it when he does sort of have that confidence of, I can get past my first man and get that shot up. So I think it's just a matter of time before we get that triple double from Josh Giddey, because his game really is rounding out. Even though he didn't have that many assists last night, the 2 that he had were unbelievable. That left-handed wraparound. I mean, his passing game is really something else.
Yeah, and you said as soon as he gets more confidence and as soon as he starts to get a better feel of the NBA as well and those herky-jerky movements and drives to the bucket, they're going to get a lot more smoother and a lot easier for him as well. One more game I just want to quickly talk about before we get into some other talk is the Trailblazers. Came back from, I think, 20 down to beat the Chicago Bulls yesterday. Dame Lillard had himself a nice little game. But it was the big guys, Nasir Little and Larry Nance Jr. that were quite impressive. Have the Blazers turned a corner?
Yeah, I mean, the slow start really was, I guess, largely because Damian Lillard got off to a slow start. But he's sort of been pretty good in the last sort of 3-4 games. But it has definitely got to come from the other guys. I mean, Robert Covington hasn't been great this season. So getting guys like Little coming off the bench and really contributing. And I was a big fan of Larry Nance coming to join this team because he gives them some options because he can play multiple positions. You can roll him out in different lineups. And there are quite a few new faces on this team. So when you throw that in with a new head coach in Chauncey Billups as well, I'm not surprised that it was going to take a bit of time for the Blazers, but I'm still optimistic about their season.
Yeah, he does play a lot of Larry Nance. We're talking about. He does play a lot of. He brings a lot of versatility, I should say, to the lineups. I think he's done his best work when he's played at the 5.
Yeah.
Covington has been playing that well, so there's talk that maybe Larry Nance could replace him in that starting lineup. But he's been doing well coming off the bench. BK, let's get into some talk here. Now,
Let's do it.
we've spoken about this. We kind of touched on it. We said, look, it's early in the season. We don't want to get carried away, but we're about 16, 17 games into the season now, give or take. It's time to get carried away. Let's talk some MVP talk, right? So there's three guys that stand out to me, and we'll kind of run through them individually. First up, I want to talk about Steph Curry because is he the MVP favorite at the moment? I mean, he's averaging 28.7 points, third highest, his third highest career average in points per game, 6.6 assists, 6.3 rebounds. The Warriors are 12-2. Does this make him the early MVP favorite?
I think he has to be number one on the MVP ladder. And really that game in Brooklyn was kind of the prove it game. You're coming up against Kevin Durant, who's probably the other guy in the running after the first month of the season. And if you were just watching that game, Steph Curry is the MVP right now. I mean, the stuff he was doing on the road, getting MVP chance, 37 points. I mean, the fact that the Warriors are nowhere near fully healthy. I mean, yes, they've had an easier schedule, but they've still just beaten what's in front of them. So I got to give major props to Steph Curry. Would you have him or Kevin Durant as your front runner?
So this is the thing, right? I'm glad you asked me that question because for me, and I know this varies, like this is not the way that the NBA awards the MVP, but for me, it's the definition of a most valuable player is if you take this player off this team, how well would they do without him, right? And you take Steph Curry off the Golden State Warriors right now, and they're a lottery team. Like the rest of those guys are good, but they're a lottery team. You take Kevin Durant off the Brooklyn Nets, and yes, James Harden is not having his best season. He's only averaging 19 points or whatever it may be, and he's maybe struggling with these new rules and adjusting to that. But you take Kevin Durant off the Brooklyn Nets, and they've got enough to at least still make maybe middle of the road Eastern Conference, like maybe fifth seed or below. So for me, that's the biggest gauge for an MVP. Take this guy off, and how good is this team? And right now, you take Steph Curry off those Golden State Warriors, and they're just they're just like
the Nets are still an experienced team. They've still got a lot of veteran guys that have won playoff series that have been there before. James Harden surrounded by four role players, that will be enough to get you into the postseason. But another guy who's kind of just shoehorned his way into the conversation, DeMar DeRozan, man, what he's been doing in Chicago. The Bulls are sort of flying now in the Eastern Conference, but it really starts with DeMar DeRozan. He's been unbelievable to start this season.
Yeah, he has, and the Bulls are gelling. If we look at DeMar's stats, he's got 26.9 points, 5.5 rebounds, 4.1 assists. And if we're talking MVP favorites, I'm going with Steph Curry, but DeMar DeRozan has definitely got to be a dark horse contender for that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Steph and KD are at the top, but I think it's you put DeMar in that group, and then it's probably a gap between the third and and whoever you have at fourth.
Yeah, I'd love to know the odds on that. I don't know if we've got them to throw them up on the screen at the moment. If not, hopefully we'll get them by the end of the show. But the next thing I want to talk about, BK, quickly is the Dallas Mavericks. Now, you spoke to me about the Mavericks yesterday. You like this run that they're going on at the moment. Up to fourth in the West, 9-5 on the season. They lose to the Suns yesterday, but the Suns are scorching hot. They've won 10 in a row. No Luka. He's got a bit of an injury, so it's, I think, a lower left leg injury. Jason Kidd said following the game the other day, he walked off on his own power. I think he got his left leg rolled up on, so we'll see how he feels. Have you heard anything? Has been any updates on Luka and his injury situation?
I mean, when he left the game, it didn't look too bad. I mean, like you said, Jason Kidd, was pretty confident that he would be back sooner rather than later. But I mean, when you look at the Dallas Mavericks start to this season, they were awful. They were just shooting mid-range jumpers. They weren't winning games. Porzingis was out and was looking bad. So the fact that they've been able to turn this around, I mean, thanks largely to Luka Doncic, who was pretty important to this sort of run to get them back up to the top tier of the Western Conference. But you got to shout out Kristaps Porzingis because he has been the missing piece for them. he's come back into the lineup and he's been good. He's been getting rebounds. He's been scoring the ball. He's really been looking a lot more like the number two that the Dallas Mavericks kind of envisaged when they traded for him. Do you think he can keep that up this season?
I'm not convinced. I mean, his biggest issue has always been health. But when he's in the team, he changes the dynamic of that team. You know, he can stretch the floor, he can shoot the three. The guy's 7'3", and he's beyond the arc, knocking down 3-pointers. He can drive to the rim as well. He's averaging 19 and 8 in his 8 games so far this season. I covered him not necessarily just him, but I saw him night in and night out when I was in New York all those years, and I just wasn't convinced that he was a number one guy back then. If he can be a consistent number two, I think that makes the Mavericks, a nice little threat in the West. It's health. I think health is the biggest issue with him because he's missed a ton of games pretty much every single season that he's been in the league.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. It's what's the old saying? Availability is a skill, and he hasn't had that for quite some time.
He hasn't mastered it. All right, BK. Listen, we're going to close out with a few predictions for today. There's about 6 games on the schedule. We have got the Warriors and the Cavaliers. Cavs have got a few injuries. Mobley is out. The Warriors are heavy favourites here, $1.25. Cavs are at $4.30. The line is at 9.5, and the total is at 209. Warriors easily here.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think the Cavaliers have much of a chance against Steph Curry and the Warriors.
Next up, we got the Wizards, the surprising Wizards, still leading the Eastern Conference at 10-4. Miami, they're playing the Heat. Miami's at 10-5, so only 1 game behind. This game's in Miami, and Miami are favourites there, $1.34. The line's at 7.5, and the total is at 206. I'm going with Miami at home.
Yeah, I like the Wizards, but I'm gonna still roll with Miami. They've had some injury problems in the last couple of games, but I've been on Miami all season, so I'm gonna stick with them.
Yeah, you have been on Miami all season, actually. So next game, 76ers at Nuggets. 76ers have got a ton of injuries. Nuggets heavy favourites, $1.31. Philadelphia, $3.70. I think the Nuggets are going to handily win this. Philadelphia are really struggling at the moment. They've got guys out to injury, guys out to COVID protocols. There's a ton of guys missing.
Yeah, they've lost 5 in a row at the moment. And, when you don't have Joel Embiid, Matisse Thybulle, they're just missing so many key guys. So I'm a roll with the Nuggets, who are also missing a lot of guys, but they've been holding on pretty well in their absences this season.
Yeah, they're missing a lot of guys, but I think they've got a lot more guys available than Philadelphia.
They've got their MVP candidate available. That's the main one.
I think you and I could probably get a run for Philadelphia right now. Last game we're going to take a look at is the Raptors and the Jazz. Jazz, very, very heavy favourites here, and I'm going to go with the Jazz.
Ooh, geez, that's very much in favor of the Jazz at home. I like the Raptors. They're my sneaky team, but at home in Salt Lake City, I'll roll with Utah as well.
Yeah, going with Utah there. All right, BK, thank you very much. Always a pleasure, never a chore chatting hoops with you. We'll see you again on Monday morning. And that's all we've got time for. So, like I said, we'll see everybody Monday morning, not just BK. This has been another episode of the Last Shot NBA show on Little Birdie TV, brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au. And we shall see you on Monday.